Have you ever wished you could get a better burn on your candles? Do you have candles that are sooty, the wax doesn't burn, and it just is like not as exciting as you thought it was going to be when you purchased this candle in the store? Hi, I'm Nelena and I'm the owner of BookSense, and today I am going to give you a few tips and tricks and how you can improve the performance of your candles. Super simple, 3 easy steps to create a candle experience that you are hoping for and one that you will love for hours and hours. So here's the first tip. This is an easy one, but it's one that people don't even know about. It's trimming the wick of your candle. So whether you have one of my BookSense candles or another that you purchase elsewhere, the first thing you want to do is make sure that the wick is short enough and is trimmed. Now, most people think if you buy it from the store, it should be ready to just light and go. But I want to tell you that that's not always the case. So if you'll notice, we have a dual wick in our candles here. And basically, there's these tools. This tool here, it's called a wick trimmer. And so basically how this works is you use it to trim back the wick, just like little scissors. It basically takes off a piece of the wick. Now these are trimmed pretty short, so they don't need too much more trimming. The idea is that the longer the wick, the more smoke, soot, and bad flame situation is going to go on here. So the very first and most important thing is you want to trim the wick, whether it's a new candle or after you've burned it the first time or the third time, every single time. So the first burn and every burn after that, you want to make sure that you take, you can use scissors from like your knife block, or if you've got some kitchen shears of some sort, or you can use a fancy tool like this one. But basically the idea is that you need to trim the wick at least less than 1/4 inch so that there's less wick to burn. It's just enough to ignite it to get the wax melting, but it's not so much that it's this long experience. And if you start off with a long wick, you're going to have a high flame, and that's where you get all of that smoke and soot. And it's pretty gross. So one of the easiest steps that you can take, if you don't do anything else, this one is the most important: trim the wick. All right, now we're ready for tip number 2, which is allow for a proper first burn. Now, with my candles, with the coconut wax, you only need to burn it for about 3 hours, or until the wax is melted all the way from corner to corner. So as you can see, this particular candle has been burning for quite a while. This is actually the second burn, so it's down a little bit into the container there, but you'll see that it's a liquid all the way around. So now it's burned fully, and once I extinguish it and relight it, it will continue to burn evenly. If you don't and you turn it off and extinguish it prior to the first burn of a couple of hours, 3 to 4 hours, depending upon the container size and the candle, each is going to burn at a little bit different speed. You're going to find that you end up with something called tunneling. And if you've burned candles for a while, you'll notice that sometimes if they're not wicked properly, or if you didn't burn it well the first time and you kind of turn it off and put it out after maybe an hour, you end up with sort of a circle in the middle, and then you end up with even a bunch of wax on the sides of your container that never get burned. So that means that's fragrance that you're not enjoying if you don't allow it to burn all the way to the sides. Like I said, sometimes you're going to have candles that don't burn to the sides because there's improper wick issue. We've tried to prevent that from happening by having the dual wicks, because the container is an odd size and not round, so it does need to have that extra wick to help burn all the way to the edges. So tip number 2, make sure you allow for a proper first burn, which is usually about 3 to 4 hours. So our final tip for taking care of your candles and getting the most out of your burn and avoiding soot is to not blow your candles out. So this is actually the second most important tip when it comes to avoiding soot. So the first one is trimming the wick every time before you burn your candles, even a new candle. And the second is not blowing your candles out. The only candles you ever need to blow out are your birthday candles, okay? So a couple things you can do here. Let me go ahead and, now every time I move this, it's going to cause a little bit of smoke. So you're going to see a little bit of smoke. That's just because I'm moving, the wick's moving around, and that causes an incomplete combustion, and that's what causes a little bit of that smoke. However, you're going to notice that there's no soot in this candle container, and it's been burning for 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours, and it's the second burn, and I haven't cleaned it. This is how it looks just after a couple of burns. So the thing that I do that's different than just blowing it out is using a couple of different tools. So this is a wick dipper. It's flat piece of metal, but what it does is it has this curved edge. And so what you do with this is you actually dip the wick back into the wax to extinguish it. Now I'm going to show you here what that looks like so you can get an idea of what the difference is. So if you've probably blown a candle out, you know what the smoke intensity is going to be. Blowing out a candle this size too, you want to be careful because wax can splatter and spray, and depending upon how aggressive you blew it out. So I would encourage you to use the next two tools and tips in extinguishing candles. So I'm going to show you how this wick dipper, works. So you take this right next to the wick and you just push it right into the wax and out goes the fire. Now you use this to straighten it back out so it's right straight up in the middle there. And then you do it to this one. Same thing. Push it up. It's a little off center, but with 2 wicks you're pretty safe. So there you go. So now you've got 2 wicks extinguished. Did you see any smoke? I saw very little smoke, very, very little smoke. All right, so the next thing that you can use, and a lot of people are familiar with these, this is called like a bell snuffer. It's shaped like a bell, as you can see there. And this is really easy because basically what it does is it takes the oxygen away. You don't even have to dip it into the wax. You just have to hold it down over the flame, and it will reduce the oxygen amount just enough that it'll extinguish the flame with very little smoke. So I'm going to show you this with this 8-ounce tin. Just push it right over. You'll see a little bit of smoke. And it's done. No wax on the inside. A little bit of smoke, but not a ton. So that is really 2 very important tips. Do not blow your candles out. If you have you don't have these tools, you can use some other mechanisms, but ultimately you do not want to blow the candles out because that creates improper combustion and extinguishing and a ton of smoke. So these 2 ways will reduce your soot and increase the quality of your candles. So today we've talked about 3 easy tips that you can use to make your candle burning experience awesome and to show your candles a little TLC. The first thing is to trim your wick every time you burn it, whether it's a new candle or one you've burned multiple times. The second is to make sure that you create a first proper burn, which is about 3 to 4 hours, depending on the candle and its size. And the third thing is not to blow out your candles, but to use tools like the ones we have here. So as you can see here, these candle tools are, really easy to use, simple to incorporate into your candle usage. Candle care is really important to me and my company, primarily because the candles that I make are more than just a basic candle. They represent something important, whether it's a character or a story. And so I want you to get the best experience you can with your candles. So as part of that, BookSense does 2 things. We have 2 different things. So the first thing we do is we offer these tools for sale in the store. So you can get a set of all 3 of these in our store for $12. The other thing that we do is every time that you order a 10-ounce candle, you get this card. And on the back of this card, you will see we have something called the Soot Method for Candle Care. So basically it covers these tips that I gave you, plus a couple of other things like don't put your candle in a draft, make sure that you keep the oxygen flow good, all those types of things. So every order of a 10-ounce candle is going to get this card. So we really believe it's really important to take care of your candles so you don't end up with soot, so that you end up with enjoying your candles for as long as you possibly can. I hope these tips have helped you today, and I hope with every purchase that you make with BookSense, you have an amazing candle experience.